Jermaine Jackson was not just a voice in the world's most famous band. He was the unbreakable core of the Jackson dynasty, the steady hand that guided a family empire from a cramped Indiana home to the pinnacle of global fame. His was the warmth that balanced the blaze, the gravity that held chaos in check, and the soul that absorbed the first and deepest wounds of an unimaginable legacy. From the silent boy in a two-room house to the man standing beside a king, his journey was carved not from stardom's glitter, but from poverty's grit, a father's iron will, and a loyalty that would be tested to its absolute limit. The applause was deafening, but the scars beneath were cut to the bone. Fractures in brotherhood, collapses of private worlds, and a financial downfall that stripped dignity before reputation. And then, the most devastating blow of all, the day he lost Michael forever. It was more than a tragedy, it was an earthquake in the soul of an older brother. And now, after a lifetime in the spotlight's glare, one truth remains, a secret Jermaine Jackson has guarded in silence for over 30 years. It is a profound irony that one of music's most recognizable voices was born into a world where sound was often stifled by survival. Jermaine LaJohn Jackson arrived on December 11, 1954, in Gary, Indiana, the fourth of 10 children in a home where space was a luxury and silence was a currency. On Jackson Street, life was a tight press of bodies and ambition, where children slept head to toe and the kitchen table served as classroom, rehearsal space, and anchor. Joseph Jackson returned each day with steel dust on his clothes and a discipline honed like a blade, demanding a mirrored resolve from his sons. Catherine, gentle and steadfast, carried a quiet melody of her own, a dream deferred for the furnace of family duty. You learned the rhythms of that house early, which floorboards creaked, were not to breathe too loudly. Loss introduced itself before memory could form a defense, with the passing of Brandon, Marlon's twin, weaving a permanent thread of absence into the family fabric. Grief tightened the space for affection. Faith ruled with clarity, there were no birthdays, no holidays, only obedience. Childhood here was instruction without softness, commands over comfort, expectations over embraces. Joseph insisted on being called by his name, never Dad. Mistakes had consequences. Dreams were permitted only if they served the collective climb. It was not cruelty, but a relentless pressure, applied daily to shape boys into pillars capable of bearing a weight not yet seen. Then, pressure sparked destiny. When Tito touched the forbidden guitar and a string snapped, it should have been an ending. Instead, it was a genesis. Play it again, Joseph commanded, and talent flooded the room. Soon, Tito, Jackie, and Jermaine were weaving sounds in the cramped space, while little Michael, barely 5, astonished everyone with a voice that seemed too vast for his small frame. From that small act of rebellion, the Jackson 5 was born. By March 1969, Motown had signed them, and Jermaine, still a teenager, felt his childhood evaporate as Los Angeles swallowed whatever innocence remained. While boys his age chased games in the street, he stood under blinding stage lights, learning the brutal lesson that failure was never an option. Within this machine, Jermaine carried something singular, a voice of resonant warmth and natural restraint, a gravity that steadied those around him. From hunger, he learned rhythm. From an iron hand, endurance. From loss, how to stand firm. He was rising not just as a performer, but as a man forged in the fire of what duty demands long before it ever offers reward. Fame did not arrive for Jermaine Jackson, it collided with him. In 1969, at 14, he was thrust beneath the roar of stage lights, his voice locked into harmonies destined to circle the globe. There was no warm-up, no choice, only the crushing weight of expectation. He didn't climb to stardom, he was thrown into its deepest waters and ordered to swim before he knew the current. Years later, the memory would still constrict his throat. The world saw tailored suits, perfect smiles, and a velvet voice co-leading Motown's most electric act. It never saw the grind that carved those smiles into place, rehearsals before dawn, choreography until legs gave out, interviews drilled until every answer was stripped of spontaneity. Jermaine's steady tone became the ballast beneath Michael's incandescent blaze. Each roar from the crowd split him in two, pride braided with a quiet, proprietary ache. Touring erased childhood overnight. At 15, he traded school for airport terminals and backstage tunnels where time moved faster than youth could comprehend. He slept upright on buses, ate between sound checks, and learned to smile through a fatigue that blurred the world's edges. His burden extended beyond the microphone. On stage, he shared the lead. Off stage, he became the stabilizer, the calm mediator, the pressure absorber, the one who stood where no role was defined. Motown trusted him to hold the harmony together while brilliance burned hot. And as devotion to the Jackson name swelled, Jermaine felt himself thinning inside the machinery, elevated by legacy yet confined by expectations he never chose. As the 1970s ignited, the Jackson 5 became a global phenomenon. When I Want You Back exploded to number 1, Jermaine was 15, flung into an orbit where oxygen was thin. Hits like ABC and I'll Be There crowned the group a miracle. Inside him, a quieter truth settled. The boy was vanishing behind the hurricane of success. On stage, he moved with an elegant composure. Off stage, the cost was measured in trembling hands and exhausted silence. Under Motown's ruthless precision, every breath was choreographed. Michael was the fire, Jermaine was the gravity. With every scream for his younger brother, pride intertwined with an unnameable sorrow. Then came 1975, a clean, sharp line drawn across his life. When the family chose to leave Motown, he stood at a fault line. Follow Blood, or stand alone. At 21, staring at a contract that split his destiny in two, he understood the price of either path. He stayed. He watched his brothers walk away while something tore quietly within. Vindication arrived, but not gently. By 1980, crafting Let's Get Serious with Stevie Wonder, Jermaine finally stood alone in the spotlight, his solo success silencing years of doubt. Yet the ground kept shifting. When Thriller transformed Michael into a mythic figure, Jermaine applauded with genuine pride, even as his own arena lights dimmed. He adapted, endured, and became the keeper of the legacy, the calm presence holding history steady when the noise grew deafening. For the heartbeat of a dynasty, fractures were inevitable. They weren't rumors, they were scars carved in rehearsal rooms and silent car rides. Jermaine bore the impossible weight of holding together a family that was too brilliant, too scrutinized, and too human to stay perfectly in tune. The first subtle cracks appeared in the early 70s as creative tensions flickered between him and Michael. By 1975, the rift became a chasm with the Motown decision. Returning to the group later, the air had changed. Silent disagreements over direction with Jackie, Tito, and Marlon left lines of fatigue. Once again, Jermaine became the anchor and the shield. As Randy emerged with raw energy, Jermaine embodied composure, their friction leaving permanent marks. The 1990s brought battles fought in tabloids, siblings wrestling over narrative and truth. Jermaine stepped forward not for glory, but as a buffer. Every rupture taught him that conflict is not the opposite of love, but its heaviest, most complicated form. By the 2000s, he had become the family's emotional spine, not because he never faltered, but because he always found a way to rise again. But no stage could prepare him for the private battlefields. Hazel Gordy entered his life in the early 70s, a calm harbor against fame's storm. As Berry Gordy's daughter, she understood the throne without being intoxicated by it. Their marriage in 1973 felt like a sanctuary. When their first daughter arrived in 1977, Jermaine wept in a way no audience ever witnessed. Yet sanctuaries can fracture under opposing pressures. Hazel cherished quiet and routine, Jermaine inhabited a world where time was not his own. Each tour stole a fragment of normalcy. Love thinned, strand by strand, until by 1988, the divorce was a quiet, devastating surrender. The loss was absolute. He learned that success could lift a man to the world stage, but it could not raise his children in his constant presence. This personal spiral held a deeper, more corrosive truth. Seeking solace in another life while still tethered to the first, Jermaine crossed a line that could never be redrawn. His relationship with Margaret Maldonado began while he was still married. When their son Jeremy was born in 1986, joy collided violently with guilt. He was now living two lives that could not coexist without profound hurt. By the time their daughter Jordan was born in 1989, the weight was staggering: 2 households, 2 mothers, 4 children, and a man split so completely neither side could claim all of him. The bond with Margaret, built on complicated ground, eventually faded quietly by 1993. No villains emerged, only human frailty and the enduring lesson that a man can love his children deeply while creating a world where everyone carries a wound. 2 years later, he stumbled onto another fault line with Alejandra Genevieve Oaziaza. Their connection in 1995 was a public detonation, placing him under fresh scrutiny. Their marriage was headline news before it could be private life. When their son Jafar arrived in 1996, followed by son Jermajesty in 2000, purpose surged anew. But joy could not outweigh the immense pressure: 7 children across multiple households, wavering finances, and the suffocating shadow of the Jackson legacy. By the mid-2000s, home was no longer a refuge but a place of silent bracing. The divorce in 2008 was a weary exhale. Then came 2009, and the coldest arithmetic of all: court-ordered child support demands for $35,000 in arrears. In a sterile courtroom, numbers replaced lullabies. Standing there, explaining the collapse of a life once lived on global stages, Jermaine faced humility in its purest, most devastating form. Yet the heart, even when shredded, dares to search for a new chapter. When he met Halima Rashid in 2004, he was a man hovering between an ending and a beginning. She entered not with drama, but with a rare, gifted stillness. For 13 years, across homes in Dubai, Los Angeles, and Bahrain, they built a fragile sanctuary: no children, no scandalous headlines, just 2 people striving for peace. But peace in Jermaine's world was ephemeral. The old, relentless gravity of financial responsibilities and fractured pasts pressed in. The tenderness thinned under strain until, in 2016, a moment of tension symbolized the breaking point. Their divorce that followed was not born of hatred, but of exhaustion, the quiet acknowledgement that they could no longer carry the same dream. It ended with dignity, a sigh rather than a scream. If the wounds of broken bonds etched his spirit, nothing could prepare him for the tidal wave of losing Michael. On June 25, 2009, the world lost the king of pop. Jermaine lost the boy who had shared his childhood bed, his secrets, and the crushing weight of their name. The grief was a hollowing silence, sharper than any spotlight. Regrets over unspoken words and unresolved moments became razors in the night. "I thought we had time," he would whisper to the emptiness. The funeral at the Staples Center was a global spectacle of mourning, but for Jermaine, standing feet from Michael's casket, it was a private, shattering goodbye. He forced himself to make the public announcement, his voice cracking under the weight of the last duty an older brother could perform. Michael was more than an icon to him; he was a partner, a reflection, the only soul who truly understood their unique isolation. His absence became a permanent room in Jermaine's heart, forever empty. The blows of fate continued their merciless march. In June 2018, Joseph Jackson, the patriarch who built and burdened the dynasty, succumbed to pancreatic cancer. Jermaine mourned the complex figure who gave them everything and wounded them deeply, a tangle of gratitude and unresolved pain. Then, in January 2024, Tito, the gentle guitarist and his steadying older brother, was lost to cancer. Tito's death did not shake the world like Michael's, but it quietly collapsed another pillar of Jermaine's past. With each loss, the silence grew, a mansion of empty rooms where laughter now only echoed in memory. Today, in his 70s, Jermaine Jackson's life is defined by quiet discipline and resilience. A net worth sustained through royalties and selective appearances funds a modest stability, not extravagance. His homes in Los Angeles and Las Vegas are sanctuaries of memorabilia and reflection, not opulence. His days are deliberate: morning prayer, simple meals, tending to legacy, and maintaining deep, intentional bonds with his 7 children. He finds purpose in quiet philanthropy, funding music programs and scholarships, extending a legacy of compassion. The shadows of grief remain, the missed calls, the empty chairs. He maintains his strength through routine and reflection. Jermaine Jackson now embodies a profound truth: survival is not mere existence. It is enduring with compassion, loving imperfectly, and cultivating connection after a lifetime in the blinding glare. His story is a testament to the quiet strength that holds families and legacies together, the unbreakable core that remains long after the applause has faded.